not everybody's business should be in a category of one. Most shouldn't even try, and frankly, they'd make a lot more money if they stopped trying. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact diagnostic I use to tell the difference. Is this a standard business that should be marketed and sold and delivered in standard ways? Or is there something rarer living in this person that the world doesn't really have a category or a name for? If you've ever been told to niche down, or you've been told to fit certain predetermined categories or a regular checklist of how to grow a business in a box, well, if you've ever had that happen and then you felt something die within you, if your work draws from more than one world, if people say, I don't really get what you do, but maybe I want it, this video is for you. And if you're a coach or an advisor to these kinds of people, this is the exact sorting process that nobody taught you. I'm Lindsay Davis. For 15 years, I've been the catalyst behind these kinds of people, the ones that nobody can quite categorize, including themselves. I've been confusing people about what I do and how I do it that entire time, which is fitting because that's exactly the kind of person that I work with. My clients can rarely explain what happened from our work either. They just know who they were when they walked in and what they're building now. By the way, everything I'm about to walk you through lives in one document. I made it for you. It's called the Category of One Blueprint, and it's a map of the unmappable. So you're welcome. It's linked below. You can grab it and follow along or use it with yourself or with your clients. Here's why you want to stay all the way through this particular video though. The first half of this video tells you whether or not you are a category of one, and fair warning, you might find out that you're not, which is genuinely good news because it means that the path to success is simpler than you've been making it. But the second half is where the real work lives. How I pull the whole puzzle out of a person, how I tell the difference between what's truly alive in them and what's just persona hiding from discomfort. And we distill it all the way down in this very video to the expression of genius. Not excellence, not competence, genius. The thing that only they can be and do and express in the world. If you leave early, you'll know what you are, but if you stay all the way to the end, you'll know exactly what to do with it next. All right, here's the first checkpoint on our journey. Do you have a cash business or a sexy soul, art, love business? Everyone wants to be special and no one wants to be what we call basic bitch. But ego wrapped up in what you do isn't actually the test. The first checkpoint is how connected are you to your product or service? I mean, some people, they don't really care that much about what they're doing, right? It's a widget, it's a program. This is kind of your basic standard entrepreneurial wisdom, where you look at what exists, where the gaps are in the market or a service that isn't being delivered, and then you just make the thing to fit that thing. And it's like just plugging into a ready-made plug, right? It's the thing that you do to make money, and then you clock out and you live your life. It's fine, it's simple, it's honest. I'm actually not here to demonize it. In contrast, we have the artisan business, and please broaden your viewpoint of what an artisan business is. This is a craftsman. This lives within you. Perhaps you have spent decades studying it, mapping it, living it, using yourself as your own living human experiment, and then you're here to teach it, to share it, to help others who are walking similar paths, right? So you might have your cash business, and then you also have your soul, your sexy love art business. It's worth it to place yourself honestly before anything else that we cover next. And there isn't any judgment on either end. The trouble I really find is when somebody is pretending that they're on one end of that spectrum when they actually serve the other. So that brings us into the basic bitch checklist. This is exactly how I tell when a business should just be run the standard way. First of all, are there a lot of established models for this? Wait, time out. Before we do this, I want to make this really practical for you. So have in mind your business. Have in mind the thing in you, maybe that you haven't even put into words yet, that you might like to express in the world. Perhaps have your business and offers as they exist now, what you've been told they should be, right? Like lay it out with me. Pretend that you walked into my office with me and you're sitting across from me like one of my beloved clients. And together we are assessing, where do you fit? Regular business, category of one business. All right, let's tap back in. So first, are there a lot of established models for exactly this, the thing that you want to do? Can you describe to me the product or the service simply, and is it commonly recognized? Like if we were at a barbecue and you walked up and I said, what do you do? Could you just articulate it? Here's what I do. I'm a blah, blah, blah teacher. I'm a conductor. I'm a martial artist. I'm a painter. I'm a plumber. I'm an architect, right? And then people go, oh, that's great. And then they know how to ask questions and dialogue with you. If you start explaining what you do and you fumble all over the place because it doesn't fit any of the normal categories, or you share it and you get kind of glassy eyes looking back of like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. Well, you might be a category of one. So that's the first question set I would look at. The second one, in what you're doing, even if the industry exists, even if the service category exists, do you have a new component to it? Like something that no one else is doing, a unique angle, right? So then we're looking at we're turning it around and saying, is how you do it, is that the unique category of one? But you might want to sell it or advertise it in a unique way. So also, is there a clear X equals Y in your marketing, right? It's just a very straight-lined path. Do you want candy? Yes, I do. The end. Then great. You might have a really standard basic bitch business and there's no real need for me. I will say a caveat. Sometimes a business is basic, but the person inside of it isn't ready to run with it yet. They might be transitioning from corporate into standalone, entrepreneurial. They might have a lot of what we would call embodiment hiccups, meaning they don't see themselves as an entrepreneur yet and no one taught them how. So they might be running a very standard business or want to, but they're missing the basic skills, right? In sales, in writing, in marketing, in product development. So that's fine and I can help with that too. And that's kind of like short-term work just to get up and running. But we're all clear, it's not innovative and that's okay. By the way, why it's good news if you're running a basic bitch or a standard business. The path is simpler than probably you've been making it. Stop paying attention to all of the marketing content and the messages about category of one and soul-led business. It's help that you don't need. You serve a niche or a gap. You have a product to deliver it. You're selling and marketing and advertising it. You just plug and play and you get to reap the rewards. End of story. Now, next, let's go into what signals a category of one. Before I go there, I want to share a point of view. I believe that there isn't anything quicker, more efficient, effective, even existentially developmental to running a soul kind of business, meaning your business is the playground of your soul's greatest expression. Something in what that art, that business is calling forth requires that you live and you become something other than what you are now. So that relates to the signals of becoming a category of one. And so you're sitting across from me, you have your business idea, and here's what I'm listening for. When something rare is in the room, they'll sit down and they'll say, so I have this idea and I don't know that it's a thing, and I don't know that it's very realistic, and I don't know that it's very reasonable, right? They'll start actually caveating it. But I can't stop thinking about it. And I've been thinking about it and mulling it over and kind of trying and listening to YouTube talks and, just trying to figure out if it could be realistic. And so that's the first signal. They kind of don't have words themselves to describe what's inside of them and what it means and how deeply terrifying or unsettling, but also alive it is. So when that's the case, I lean in a little bit deeper and I say, well, tell me about it. Best you can, dump it out, like dumping the puzzle pieces on the table. And they come alive when they talk about it. They're lit up all over the place, where they've come from, what they've learned, what they nerd out about, what's meaningful to them, tangential stories about how this came to be, or people they've done this work with before, and now they just want to do more of it. So I'm listening for how alive it is in them. And that brings me to signal 1. They might be multi-passionate or what I would call cross-domain. So they would have likely developed mastery or expertise in more than one path. Like, I discovered XYZ over here, and I think it can change everything in this domain over there. So they're translating across domains. This requires exposure to many worlds, and it's quite rare. It lives in a person of the world who has experienced art and culture and meaning and mastery and devotion, and now they're bringing those two worlds together. A great example of a category of one that I know is somebody who studied Pilates in their body to rehab injury for probably 30 years while simultaneously training jiu-jitsu. Right? And they actually were able to translate a very tiny aspect, but important, on deep core from Pilates into how they trigger deep core in jiu-jitsu. And it makes jiu-jitsu almost unbeatable at upper echelon levels. And that's the training that they do, right? But for example, it took them particularly being devoted to two different disciplines long enough that something synergistic emerged between the two. So that's signal 1. Signal 2 is that they have a mastery edge. This is related, right? But go with me. So it might not be cross-domain, but they have been devoted long enough. They have done the things. They have honored the lineage. They have walked the path that something not commonly taught has emerged. This is where you have to know the status quo long enough and deep enough. There's an honoring of it before you can get far enough to see what no one else sees and speak to or train that thing. Signal 3, they might be elevating something that most people dismiss. They might be taking a premium kind of position or elite elevation of something that everyone else has dismissed as, important, but not that important. Like they might be doing something unique with makeup. Or for example, a client of ours, and she is taking what most people have dismissed, which is early music education for children, free education in neighborhoods and communities. And she has elevated that to a level befitting going to an adult high level sold out concert. And that came very honestly because she was alive in both worlds, both as a mama and a parent, and then also alive in the classical music scene as an orchestral conductor. And what was noticed was that children were not allowed, for probably good reason, into classical music spheres, but they were then missing out on developing that kind of culture and connection. And so she just took her mastery and said, children are worth it, communities are worth it. And she elevated it to like the most innovative thing of how she trains and develops musicians in bringing this programming to children. So children's concerts, same skill and devotion she brings as a professional conductor, applied to a 30-minute kids show. It's incredible. All right, here's a stop check. Even with an innovative thing, can it be shared and sold in a basic or standard way? If so, this is where we might stop, where we just do development of the thing. So if you're coming to me or in my office, we're going through these signals, and so far you look like a category of 1. This is where I would stop the conversation and I would look at, like, if we brought this into development, like you knew what you were selling and offering, is it going to be sold and shared in a standard way? Because then we can find where the complexity lives and mine that, but also where the simplicity lives. And we can harken back to the other side of the flow chart. A category of 1 is sometimes not just about what might be brought into the world, but also how it will be brought to the world. Overall, I alluded to this, but one of the telltale signals is the struggle that this is hard to communicate. It's a very narrow or niched audience. It's often misunderstood. And it has a culture, it has its own language. It takes maybe a little bit of a geek to get it. And the person often who is this category of 1 might even have developed their own complex, if we call it that. I'm bad at talking. Nobody gets me. Everybody puts me in this box. And that might even come from a lifetime of not being misunderstood. In that way, the wound is often a part of their signal as a category of 1. This is what I mean. The business is the playground for the soul's greatest expression. All right, so we've made it through the checklist so far. Signals of category 1, we're looking good, right? Now we get into the work. Game on. So once it's a yes, before anything gets built, we have to evaluate their commitment to seeing it all the way through, because this isn't just basic business. And so the skin in the game feels a lot more personal. It's inherently something so deeply personal and meaningful to them. And it's going to take their evolution inside and out, what we would call the psychosoma. These businesses are not just businesses, remember. They are the playground of your soul's greatest expression. They are the terra incognita, right? The unknown territory. And they require a trained psyche and a soma. And I'll get to more of that in a moment. So we have to dump everything out. All the puzzle pieces are on the table. And I'm going to have them, we're going to map them together. Once their commitment is, I'm going to do this, with or without support, hell or high water, I'm in. Here's skin in the game. I'm placing this on the altar. I'm willing to make the sacrifice. Now we do the dump out. So I'll look first at their direct domain. So what is their current expertise? What is their training? What experiences do they have? I would want you to tell me stories, right? Like, when was the first time that you saw that thing? Or when did you encounter that particular insight? Or what question have you been trying to answer in your exploration of these domains? So we spend a lot of time here, and I would invite you to do that too, maybe even after this video. We would be looking at tangential areas of mastery as well, overlapping topics, anywhere that they've spent a lot of time. It would be me listening and asking you questions. Then they dump all that out right at their essence. And I'm also watching for where the aliveness is, where the light comes into their eyes, where they feel dull, where it feels confusing and messy to them. And I'm looking for their genius, their blind spots, the golden thread that makes them them. It's a way of seeing and listening to more than just the words, but seeing them not just at persona or skill level, although that's important too, but deeper, the golden thread that makes them them. What walks into the room when they do, that isn't just a persona. This is why we can't just jump right into the work. What do you want to sell? How do you want to deliver it? And everything, because everything discovered in that time becomes a part of the tapestry. And if we skip this, right, if you skip this, then everything else, it won't fit quite correctly, and you'll have to retrofit it later. So dump first, then distill, like distilling like a great whiskey, down to the work that only you can do. And by the way, that would make a really great question. So I'm going to give you some questions to take with you on the road. What is the work that only you could do? If you didn't have to do any of the other stuff that people tell you to run a business, what would you be doing with or without pay anyways? What is the work that really sings for you? Where do you come most alive? Who is it speaking to? What kind of person also comes alive receiving it? Why do you believe it should exist? Even if the why is just because it doesn't exist yet and it's fucking cool. These are important questions to help you filter and now start to distill that essence like a fine whiskey or a fine perfume. And that brings us into the next section. Who you are. Body, psyche, spirit. Because the business isn't just a business. It is almost like its own entity, its own spirit. And you are not just the business owner. You are the instrument of this. You cannot build the unmappable through an untrained soul or spirit or body. So who you are matters as much as what the work is. Your energy levels matter, your care of the body and the mind. Yes, basic health, but more, deeper, go with me. Also the shape, the range of your expression. Because here's the truth of it. If you are the vessel, you are also the asset. And the asset is the one who, well, we have a saying, right? I'll say it this way. Whatever the asset requires, meaning whatever you need as the instrument in your health, your vibrancy, your aliveness, it only enhances that which you will express. For example, I'll give you an example that this is not just exercise. So you might have a preference, right? That you just particularly like yoga. And if everything is fluid yoga, just because the persona that's you actually prefers it, but your business, your evolution is asking for fire and grit. I'm looking at how do we adjust how the body is training so that it is expressing and developing in line, in resonance with what the business is also requiring you to become, right? This is psyche and spirit. What feeds also your creativity, what rhythms you hold, how you cultivate space internally and externally, how fast you can move without losing your center, how connected you are or need to be with your higher self or source, whatever it is, the thing that is guiding the vision. These questions run all the way through how does the business advance and how do we keep it aligned to your greater self, your higher self, spirit ever fed, ever alive, body alive and well while we build. This is critical because for me, success is more life in all domains, not just what you're selling and delivering. Okay, stay with me because this next part is really important and then we'll bring it home together. Next, we're looking at what is your unique angle? What is aliveness versus persona, right? Or spirit expansion rather than ego preferences. To do this, you must look at what the position is in the whole ecosystem of a business. So, what are your value sets? How do you treat people? How do you want to treat people? What do you believe about money? What do you believe about business and how you want it to work in the world? So, I've got a fun exercise and I'm going to share it with you. I will invite you to write out the invisible status quo. What standards do you think you're secretly being measured against? Like, here's an easy shorthand. This is what a legit business looks like. This is how a legit business should be, how I should sell my services. This is what I'm told. This is the invisible status quo, right? This is what a legit expert looks like. And I'll give you an example. I have a woman that is next level at what she is and who she is, and it's lived in her for a long time. But always she would say, I just need to be in academia. I need to only do it in academia, right? But every time she said it, her visage would drop and you could just tell there's no aliveness there. This was a belief just in the brain, this invisible status quo, believing that she had to be accepted in traditional academic circles for her business to count. Bullshit, right? So if you can dump out the invisible status quo, I bet you can start to look at and question, is that really true? What if it weren't? How else could this be? And for example, with that woman, it's like, actually, how does being a mutt trained in regular everyday streets, still certified, still legitimate, right? Still experienced with proven track record, but how does it actually serve your clientele that you did not come through traditional circles? That was like a secret sauce to her genius. That's what I'm talking about. We could also look at, what do you believe about marketing? What do you believe about approaching people or being approached? What power dynamics and power exchanges are at play? Who were you in previous careers? We're looking at your angle, how you would love to package it, how you would love to talk about it, how you would love to be approached in sales, what you wish were true about marketing, what you want people to feel when they're in your world. That's the key filter, right? And so we're looking for aliveness versus persona. And here's the shorthand for persona. It's usually smaller, duller. There's constriction in the body. It sources from kind of vague fears about what might not work, right? And I'll give you some examples to jog your own thought on this. I'd love to never do sales again. On the surface, I'd love to never do sales again. This might look like aliveness or preference, and it might be, but it's worth exploring. Like, is there a way of doing sales that you would love rather than I would like to never do them again? Because hard truth in business, everything is sales. Even maybe sweet talking you into watching this video with me, that's a little bit of a sale, right? So it's not realistic to say I never want to do sales again. That's my visionary edge. It's worth looking at like what are the beliefs underneath of that, the fears, the icks. So I'm looking for what is yum and what is yuck here, and how do we bridge that and really liberate the person and the soul to a greater range of expression. It might also look like I never want to be on video, so therefore I don't believe that video is aligned to me. Look, that's just discomfort talking. We all have that. And the work here is opening up to that new range, becoming someone new, being reborn again and again and again, because that is your soul's path. Aliveness says this fucking needs to be sold this way. This is how it needs to be done. This is conviction from the inside, and it works, and the work gives it an outer expression. That's innovation, and it's beautiful. So look for aliveness versus persona. We sculpt for aliveness, and we liberate or rewire persona. Okay, now we're going to get into prototypes, how to actually bring it together so that you can start to make money, help people, have a greater impact through your category of one. So, ready? We're looking at how can we build this? How can we put it together into its first prototype and test it so we know where the gaps are, and the gaps in you, and how to train them, and also the gaps in how to continue to refine and innovate, right? So how do we get this out as fast as possible to the people it can serve so we can test it and see what happens? You got to sell it before it's fully built if you can. Sometimes it does take longer to build, and that's also fine too, but we want to be careful of the sand trap here, which is I'm constantly ideating and planning, and I have lots of projects, and I'm always getting ready, and I'm never testing, because you will make the biggest tragedy ever. I've made it, I want to save you the pain, which is spending all of your sweat equity, your love, your devotion, your time, your energy, your money building a thing that doesn't fly. You don't want that. So we want to test it first as quickly as possible, and then allow, almost like an echo back, allow your people, allow the art, allow how it feels to deliver it to inform the innovation next. Here's some things that I evaluate during testing. Can you craft outcomes? So what outcome are you driving towards, and how do you build elegantly, effectively, precisely for that outcome? What needs to go in? What can stay out? And this is again a place where the ego likes to fluff up a program and add a bunch of extra shit that nobody needs and nobody wants, and it will make selling and delivering it hell for you, I promise. So we just look at the outcome and how do I elegantly craft towards that. Can you package your offerings? How are your communication skills? Do you have a level of clarity? Do you have conviction about what you're doing and why? Then we look at sales. How do you approach people? What are your verbal and nonverbal communication skills like? Is your skill set in writing, video, or speaking? How do we capitalize on your strengths while also fortifying the deficiencies that you'll need? And then we're looking at, do you have any weirdness? I'll call it that. Do you have any weirdness around what's actually needed? This is where you can train and test simultaneously, evaluating efficacy, alignment of the product, dialing up strengths as a leader of the vision, becoming the person who can lead this as the visionary you are, crafting the conditions of your gifts, your abilities required to work at echelon levels. We're also, as you're testing the prototype, we're also backfilling requisite skills as needed, organizational systems, project management, maybe communication gaps, even accounting where money is having problems. Where all of this points, right? I know I've gone into a lot here, I get it. But where all of this points, we're getting closer and closer to the expression of genius. Genius, That is the high note. That is where this whole flow chart, everything I led you through, exists to protect, to cultivate. Now, this convergence of business and the body and the vision and the nervous system that carries it underneath, this is exactly what we do at the Prestige. It was built for this and with this kind of work in mind. We train and we work hand in glove with people like this. Founders, artists, visionary leaders whose work doesn't really have a name yet. If you recognize yourself in this second half of the video, I do want you to know you are who our world is built for. And if you have an inkling that might be you, reach out so that we can discuss details, human to human. All right, so let's recap this whole shebang. Here's where you are now. Here's where you know what you're building. If it's a basic standard business, genuinely, congratulations. It's not an insult. It's like a gift. The models exist. The playbook is written. Go run with it. Make your money. And don't let anyone sell you a mystical journey that you do not need. But if you sat through the second half of this and you felt something quicken, if you heard the work that only you can do, and something in your body and your psyche said, yes, that's me. You are not confused about what you do. You are not meant to fit the status quo. You are meant to write it. And you've just never had someone who can see you for who you really are. Anyone who can hold the map, the whole map at once. The work, the angle, the aliveness, and you, the vessel that carries it forward. That's the game in front of you, and it's the best there is. I plugged this at the beginning and I'm going to plug it now. You can rewatch this video, but do go down and download your own copy of the blueprint for a category of one business. You will thank yourself taking yourself through this flow, answering these questions, and really building out your protocol, distilling it down, how to sell it, market it, share it in the world, and also develop you as the person that carries it forward. Thank you so much for joining me for this in-depth deep dive. Let me know what points were the most interesting for you or what you would like to hear discussed more. You can drop comments or reach out directly. This topic is near and dear to my heart. It is the lifeblood of everything I have been and built. And so I am just a yes to continuing to share with you.